Public Buildings Emergency Management from further consideration of H.R. 1311, and that it be considered as read and adopted and open to amendment at any point without objection. So ordered. I would now recognize Subcommittee Chair for an explanation of legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the third bill in a package to improve the disaster relief process. I thank Congressman Graves of Louisiana for bringing this. It adds a new section to the Stafford Act to speed up the disbursement of federal disaster funds, which will allow more flexibility for states to address unmet needs, such as long-term housing solutions and business recovery activities. In recent years, Congress has tried to address these needs via other federal programs located throughout the bureaucracy of the government. But we've seen significant delays time and again in distributing these dollars because of these duplicative requirements. It's often that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. With major disasters becoming more severe and frequent because of global climate change, legislation like this will help to reduce the red tape that delays assistance to our communities when they need it most. I urge passage of this bill, and I yield back.
Recognize the gentleman, the subcommittee ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too want to echo the chairman's acknowledgement of the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Graves, for his leadership on this critical piece of legislation as we look to streamline the process on disasters. Oftentimes, we will take votes to allocate large amounts of the taxpayer dollars to address those issues. And yet those same dollars sit, sadly, on the sidelines often, not to be deployed because of inefficiencies. The gentleman has been very, very thoughtful in working to try to consolidate some of those. Certainly this is one that makes sure that we're more accountable and gives communities that are impacted by these disasters a much more streamlined process for such assistance. I can tell you we were just on a call the other day with the Secretary of HUD with issues that affects not only Congressman Graves' district in Louisiana, but Congressman Weber's district in Texas, Congressman Rouser's district in North Carolina, and I know we've all seen it. You know, Sheila Jackson Lee, a number of others from areas that have been impacted by disasters, and yet we have this bottleneck. This legislation goes and is a good step forward on trying to address that. I want to thank the gentleman. I would urge all my colleagues to support it, and with that, I yield back.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any other members wish to be recognized? Yes, Mr. Graves from Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank Congresswoman Titus, Congressman Meadows, the chair and ranking of the subcommittee, for working with us on this, and I want to give a huge kudos to Congresswoman Plaskett, who we've been working with very closely on this. Obviously, with the extraordinary disasters we've had over the last several years, whether it was the 1,000-year flood in South Louisiana, where we represent, or Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, Maria, the California wildfires, more recently the Hurricanes Michael and Florence, all sorts of challenges. And of course, right now, Mr. Chairman, what's going on in the Midwest with the river system. You have two kinds of congressional districts, those that have been hit by disasters and those that will. As you look at all of these after-action reports, GAO, Inspector General, and others, you see constant themes. We've got an alphabet soup of agencies that are out there trying to get involved in disasters. USDA, Department of Commerce, FEMA, SBA, HUD, and many others. And Mr. Chairman, they're tripping over each other. We did an incredible bipartisan job last year by enacting the Disaster Recovery and Reform Act, the most significant changes to disaster policy, to the Stafford Act, since that act was initially written. And it is going to benefit disaster victims, and it is going to save taxpayer monies. It's going to be more efficient. This bill takes it a step further. What happens after disasters is that you may or may not get long-term recovery dollars through HUD. You don't even know. So here you have these temporary dollars for temporary housing, hotels, mobile homes, whatever they are, where you have these disaster victims, these states, communities have no idea if they're going to get long-term recovery dollars or not. Then the amount of recovery dollars is subject to a Ouija board. And so this bill provides certainty that money is available. Maybe it comes 2 years later, 3 years later, maybe 2 weeks later. This bill provides certainty. It provides metrics for how much money these areas can get. And importantly, as the ranking member just noted, Mr. Chairman, we appropriated tens of billions of dollars for disaster victims and improving the resiliency of our communities over a year ago. HUD hadn't even written the Federal Register notice yet. Hadn't even put a notice in the Federal Register on the dollars. Tens of billions of dollars in recovery and resilience funds are sitting in the bank, and they haven't even published a Federal Register notice in over a year. I could have done that in 3 days, because it's not reinventing the wheel. There's already precedent for this. This paper exists, and it is ridiculous what we're doing to people. This provides certainty. It's going to save taxpayers money. It's going to help to recover faster, and it's going to help to clean up this alphabet soup of agencies that are involved in disasters and having a seamless transition between temporary and long-term recovery. Again, I want to thank the Ranking Member Meadows, Chair Titus, and I especially want to thank Congresswoman Plaskett, who's going through an awful recovery with Irma and Maria in the Virgin Islands, for hard work and working with us on this to perfect the legislation, and I yield adoption. Yield back.
Thank you, gentlemen. Anyone else wish to be recognized? Hearing none. Any amendments to H.R. 1311? Hearing none. If there are none, the question is now on adoption. Favorably reporting H.R. 1311 to the House of Representatives. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The bill is approved and ordered reported favorably to the House.